Progressive Merchants of Fairmont and vicinity presents Fairmont's original Italian Hour. Good morning. This is your host, Nick Fantasia, telling you it's time for the Italian Hour.
Di Spagna sono la bella, regina sono.
Buongiorno cari ascoltatori. È tempo per un altro Odi Italiano. L'ora italiana viene portata a voi tutto domenico a WTCS. Vi portiamo musica e canzoni di prima artista italiana. Questo programma viene portato a voi con la bontà del Progressive Mercanto di Fairmont e vicinità. Good morning and hello there. This is Nick Fantasia welcoming you to another Italian Hour broadcast right here on WTCS.
Those Sundays they had that routine. That was just like a 9-to-5 workday. It just involved a little spaghetti and a few meatballs.
I probably listened to the Italian Hour when I was 7 or 8 years of age. We moved from Farmington to Fairmont, and Sunday ritual, we had spaghetti and meatballs and listening to the Italian Hour after we got back from church.
It was like clockwork, you know. We came back from 8:30 Mass, you had breakfast. We had to get up here. I always came up here on Sundays with my dad. You came up here roughly 11 o'clock. Back then, you know, you're pulling news and sports off the teletype wire to get ready for the information block that was in it. You're putting all that together. You know, he had that add-on section in the center because he would record on Wednesday nights, but he'd come up and do that hour in the center, then do that piece live. That'd finish up about 12:30. You know, do a little housekeeping, get out of here about 5 till 1. Pasta was on the table at 1 o'clock, like clockwork. Not 5 after, not 5 till. You hit the table at 1 o'clock.
I remember an Italian language heritage program in the 1950s and 60s growing up. I remember it very well because my family and I always listened to it. The Italian Hour, after Mass, every Sunday. It gave us such pride. Mr. Nick Fantasia, the music, the language, the customs, the traditions. It was very important because it helped us to perpetuate our lineage.
The Italian Hour didn't happen because of Fairmont. You know, Fairmont didn't make the Italian Hour. It was a situation of an immigrant family and their son wanting to move forward in life, and you know, you find opportunities, you go through doors, you open windows, you move ahead. And I think the Italian Hour came about as a vehicle to help him move ahead in the radio industry in the late 40s and into the early 50s, and it just happened.
Well, I think the old days when they come from Italy, they come here for work, you know, a little more security and stuff like that.
You know, when the immigrants came in, they were downtrodden. If you have a desire to come here from another land to make your life better, chances are you're pretty good that you're going to have a good work ethic. And that immigrant work ethic is what lifted the Italian community into business positions, political positions, you know, positions of some stature that changed that downtrodden status.
Italian people were kind of, I don't know, discriminated a little bit or looked down upon. To have that particular music dedicated to your nationality was special.
You know, it was always hard, just like it is today, if you're an immigrant, to get started. You know, when radio began with him in 1947, he was at Fairmont State on the GI Bill picking up a teaching degree. They were building this radio station. The owner went to the college looking for college students for cheap labor. He had a good voice, so they brought him up into the organization. wasn't allowed to use his name. He wasn't allowed to be Nick Fantasia. He was Jack Nichols. So as time progressed, in 1949, there were a group of Italian businessmen who he put on the air with commercials, and that enabled the Italian Hour to happen. And as the Italian Hour became the highest billing program in the company, then Nick Fantasia got to be Nick Fantasia, and the Italian Hour, was what enabled him to have some autonomy up here, with the organization.
Well, after they heard it, I think the first maybe a couple of times, all the sponsors start coming around, and just gradually built itself right into Italian there. Nick's got a lot of sponsors, and it's probably one of the biggest thing on that station right now, and it's grown and grown and blossomed like crazy.
In the late 40s, when my dad was able to become Nick Fantasia, he was able to become Nick Fantasia because the Italian Hour made him the highest billing salesman here. The opportunity came in 1955 for him to buy the station. He had been the largest, he was selling advertising, had been the largest biller of the 3 or 4 guys that were selling for the company. He had a friend who was also a customer, Paul Petrola Sr., who owned a series, started in Granttown with a Chevy store, and put his sons into a series of car dealerships in the area. And Paul had a habit of loaning business money to Italian businessmen who couldn't go to the bank and get a bank loan back then. Yeah, so he signed on a note. Then my grandfather had about $2,500, 25 cents a ton mining coal. They'd saved that in the mattress. Then my father's godparents in Fairmont, the Rizos, and then my father's godparents in Clarksburg, they all pitched in, and that's how he put the $5,000 together that he needed for the down payment. Then he and Paul were on the loan, and he had 49%, Paul had 51%. Then through the transactional closing, he ended up with 51% and Paul had 49%, and that's how they ended up buying the radio station. Like what any father was trying to accomplish, he was trying to feed his kids. My dad, he graduated with the GI Bill, had a teaching degree, and by the time he owned the radio station, he had 4 kids, and of course his father was hurt in the coal mine. My grandfather, through a slate fall, had broke his back in the mine, so he was disabled. So my dad was taking care of his parents, plus the 4 children he had at that time, then to be 6 children. And he always loved teaching school. He loved being in the legislature, but the radio station was a hobby that allowed him to have a quality of life he wanted to have. For my dad, the radio station was more of a vocation. It wasn't a job to him. He enjoyed being on the air. I mean, if my dad could have done every commercial and done every show and been on the air every hour, I think that would have made him happy. He really liked to be on the radio. So it definitely wasn't a job. But the sales side of it, it didn't take him long to figure out was where he needed to be able to have a quality of life for his family that he wanted to have. Then, of course, the opportunity later to own it and to provide a legacy, if you will, with a family business was I'm sure something else that was a high profile to him. The Italian Hour was it was a lucrative venture for the radio station. It was for my dad as well, but it was good business for the businesses who were on it, because if you were an Italian guy and you needed a muffler for your car, you went to see Bill Sicuro. He was on the Italian Hour. Or you stopped at Fio Anselini's for gas, or you went to Tom Farine's to get your lawnmower repaired. Or you went over on Speedway to Harry's Bargain Center to pick up your work shoes. Those were the stores that were on the air in the 60s that I remember, and in the 70s, and those Italian businesses directly benefited from those listeners to the Italian Hour. You had an Italian church because the good church didn't let the Italians in. You had one on the east side, you had one, down in Bellevue. You had an Italian club because the other Catholic clubs, they didn't want to let the Italians in. And I don't know that that's any different than any other, manufacturing Rust Belt community.
That started going. He went from Italian, and he had to satisfy the Polish people, or Hungarian, whatever, Croatian, and all that, and start playing the polkas, and it worked out. Then that's how he sold a lot of advertisement for his business, and that grew and grew too. So that helped him too. That probably worked automatic because he probably wasn't even thinking. He's thinking about Italian there, and pretty soon the polkas and the tarantella, and the polkas.
For my father, the radio station would enable him to have a voice in the community, and it gave him an opportunity to do some things he wouldn't have been able to do politically, publicly. It also, from the business side of the radio station, it gave him an opportunity for a quality of life that he wouldn't have been able to have had otherwise. For the community, it gave the community a voice opportunity that they didn't have.
It's been wonderful. We listen to it all the time. That reminds me of Italy just because I grew up there, so it's been wonderful, yeah.
Did you ever
and the music actually grew up with it. Some they were older, but it's been very nice,
For a lot of years, there was no voice, certainly for the Italians in the area, that the Italian Hour then created a voice for them, but by and large, our company was always a much more open company than the company across the river. We allowed folks to be on the air who wouldn't have had an opportunity. We allowed folks to come in and advertise for their charitable projects and their fundraisers that wouldn't have been able to do that elsewhere. So I think for the community, it was an opportunity to have a voice that it didn't normally have, but for my dad it was an opportunity to be that voice as well as maintain a quality of life that he wanted to have as an immigrant's child.
Oh man, that really made us feel good because everybody in town was calling us up, plays different songs for them, I guess when they heard we was going to be on the radio, they made us feel good, like we were somebody.
There are so many large organizations out there who are looking at items that they feel is 30,000 square feet. Well, we don't live at 30,000 square feet. We live with our feet on the ground. And on the ground, that's where your kids play, and that's where your wife goes and buys groceries, and that's where you go cut grass. And those local events, that grassroots event, I think deserves the same type of prominence that a WVU football game does, for instance, or a Penguin hockey game. Those 50 kids at Mary Lou Retton Park playing IUE versus, or it's not IUE anymore, East Fairmont Rockets versus FOP, to them, that's as tough as the Steelers and the Browns game. And I think to those parents, it's the same way.
Well, it makes you feel a little important, to hear your name. Yeah. And it was very, very nice, yeah. I enjoyed it so much.
When someone comes up and wants to be on air or wants to work in the studio or wants to go with me to do a ball game, I'm really not that concerned about their resume. I don't need to check their pedigree. We sit down and talk for a little while, and just like when my dad did it 30, 40 years ago. If someone feels strongly and has a passion that they want to be involved and want to be exposed to this industry, you give them an opportunity to do it. My goodness, for two reasons. They're excited about it, so that should make you excited about it, but from a business standpoint, an employee who's passionate about what he wants to do is usually a pretty good employee. So that piece of the small market, I think, is the benefit versus the larger corporation. But right now in the industry, the resources that are out there are fairly parallel from one group to the next. It's just a question of how you use them. And then if you can bring the local individual into it, I think that just makes it that much better.
Every once in a while we'd go up there and sing, go up there and sing. But he'd always play our tape, and then that's how we really got involved with him. We had to wait till we went to Italian Festival, even though we knowed him all the time, when Italian Hour was going on. But we made a tape. We put a dozen songs on it, and then he started playing them tapes and talking about us and all that stuff like that. Because we were from Fairmont, and nobody else on this area went to the festival. There was nobody here but us, and we had guys on the board, the directors, stuff like that. But they all noticed, and this thing just kind of built up, like this. That's how we end up there. And then he died, and his boy. We go up every Christmas Eve. I mean, the Sunday before Christmas, and play Christmas, Italian songs, and we've been doing that for a while. So that's how that all started.
I've listened to Italian there all my life too. I've been playing music since I was 15 years old, and without the music in your life, I don't think you have anything. But you got your family and you got the dear Lord. But as far as the music, I think I'd go berserk without it, and I think Ott couldn't verify that. It's just a great thing, and what me and him have done over the last, this coming year will be 35 years up to Italian Festival at Clarksburg.
Another thing, every time after Seven Fishes, we'd have a lot of kids would come to me. They'd say, "Boy, I wish I could know them Italian." They miss that. As time went by, things they missed all that stuff because nobody was doing anything. They missed all it. And then this started. The Seven Fishes started. That really. The Italian Festival started. That helped too. And then a lot of these kids come to me. A lot of kids. I wish I could do like you and Sam could get up there and then learn them Italian songs. Well, our parents were trying to learn how to talk American instead of, they were trying to learn all that stuff, and these kids never got a chance to listen to it, If you learn how to talk Italian, where are you going to talk at? I can't talk, maybe me and Sam, I couldn't talk to you, or I couldn't talk to you. If you learn it now,
It's, I've noticed some of the younger kids I have been around in the Italian family, a lot of them are kind of bashful of wanting to learn how to talk. Because I've talked to several of my cousins in Italian, they shy away from it. I said, it shouldn't be that way. I said, that's your heritage, and you're in the family, and your family would probably appreciate it more, but it doesn't go that way. Not all the time. Yes, it's very, very much of a tradition. Yeah. Very much. What's really nice is trying to get the younger kids involved in it, and that's what we need to do, because it's their heritage. After we're gone, they have to try to follow it, which I think is a great thing.
Well, they listen to. I mean, now that they're grown, but even sometime when they're all my grandchildren, yeah. Oh yeah, we have to keep it going,
Yes, takes you back way back of all the good times and all the happiness that you had with your grandparents, and it's just marvelous.
This show has a lot of tradition. This show has a lot of history, and this show has a compelling reason to exist, in my opinion. And as I jokingly say, my name's on the door. This show's going to stay on the air. And I'll get once in a while I'll get somebody, they'll make a comment. Well, your dad passed away. Why are you still airing the show? And I said, well, John Wayne died 30 years ago. We still watch his movies.
I remember one characteristic about him is his voice. You could never miss that voice.
That's what we always talk. We always imitated Nick Van Dyke had a deep voice. We always done that part. Everybody made a little bit. Everybody could. Some guys could imitate him good, and all that.
I mean, that was his show. I mean, he did that show. 4,000 episodes. He was too shy of 4,000 episodes of that show when he passed away. So there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of tradition there that you want to keep it alive. You want to keep it rolling, and of course things change, things metamorphosize as they move, from one generation to the next. But I mean, obviously, the need to have the show, I think, still exists.
I think about that a lot of times, about my dad and all these old timers that used to sing and play down there. Because down Colossus, that was a live place down here. We used to have some big times, 4th of July down there.
I tell you what I remember is in the room next door when it was the TV studio. Because the old on-air studio was where we are today, and the old production room was next door, and that's where the Italian Hour happened. Well, my dad was in here doing this. I had the monitors all on, and I'm in that big studio, and I mean that's my memory of peering through the big at that time, when you were 4, 5, 6 years old, this gigantic piece of glass, and those gigantic old tabletop microphones, and remember that old hum from the old the old studio monitors, and we're in an AM tower field, so that always made a nice little resonance that came through all the speakers, and those memories up here on the hill, with the Christies across the street, and the DeVitos down the road, and on a Sunday morning, somebody, Mrs. Frattinelli would come up with some homemade bread, or Mrs. Guzzo would come up and she'd have something. There was always somebody walking in the door during the Italian Hour, a homemade bottle of wine or a brown bag that had a fresh this or some peppers or a fresh that. It was it was an interesting Sunday morning.
But that's fantastic that show is still going today.
This is my dad's show, and I know why he put this show on. This show was made possible because of the other Italians who helped him, get to an opportunity in this radio station, in 1949, to sell advertising, which he wasn't allowed to sell. It gave him an opportunity to use his name, which he wasn't allowed to use. It gave him an opportunity in turn to promote those Italian businesses and to get people to participate and do business with those Italian businesses. Here we are, another generation later, he's passed away, and to me, all of those ideals didn't die when he died. Yeah, I don't know that there's anything specific that I'm trying to preserve. I just think the show needs to stay on the air. Well, welcome to another Sunday morning of my father's Italian Hour broadcast. Hello, everyone. Nick Fantasia with you as we move through our 64th year of these Italian Hour broadcasts. Thanks for being with us on this final Sunday of the month of April. A lot of Sundays in April over these years of these Italian Hour broadcasts. Glad to have you with us. Don't forget, Knights of Columbus, they'll be having their spaghetti dinner. That's coming up for you today from noon until 5 o'clock.
Che bella cosa, la giornata del sole, un'aria sorrento, dopo una tempesta, e l'aria fresca, a giorno pesta, che bella cosa, una giornata del sole. Ma tu sole più bella ne, oh sole mia, stan pronta a te, oh sole mia, stan pronta a te, stan pronta a te.